to the special Purim edition of Jeff and the Rabbi.
Yeah.
That's the Rabbi, by the way.
Yeah. In attired for Purim. Not tired of Purim, but attired for Purim. Right.
Yeah. So Purim, talking about Purim, when you think about Purim, it's a good time. Last night, of course, I was thinking about Purim because I was trying to think what we're going to do in the show today. And you realize when you think about Purim, it kind of makes you think, there's one thing, one thread, if you go through history, current events, politics, college campuses, pretty much everything in the world, there's one thread, and even Jewish holidays, most of the Jewish holidays, there's one thing that stays with us in this whole thing. Hatred of the Jews. Hey, let's think about it. Most countries in Western civilization, their history, hatred of the Jews. Just open up the newspaper. Newspapers, that's that thing with the paper. You probably, it's a little different. Most of these people open up your computer, go to any site, hatred of the Jews. Try to walk on a college campus today. Go in the Northeast or go in the West. It's not as easy if you got a little kippah on or one of these nice, cute little hats over here. They don't like the Jews too much. Politics, the same thing. So something's got to be going on. Something's either A, the Jews are pretty bad people. That's one thing.
Right.
B, something's up with the Jews. There's a reason they don't like us.
Well, isn't it because the Jews are oppressing the Palestinians?
Well, that's what I read.
That's for sure got to be the reason.
Yeah, but the Palestinians really have only been around for a couple of years now. So we've been oppressing the Palestinians, the Egyptians, the Assyrians, the Greeks, the Babylonians, and the Persians.
So you mean like the Tsar in 1840 knew that the Jews were going to be oppressing the Palestinians.
Exactly.
And that's why he was giving them a hard time in 1840.
The Tsar knew it, Haman knew it,
right.
Obama knew it, everybody knew it.
Right, Khmelnytsky, right. So that's because of the Palestinians, right.
So I'm just thinking to myself, there's got to be something up here with us Jews.
Yeah.
Why do they hate us so much?
Yep. That is really, you're putting your finger right on the essential theme of Purim, because that's what the story's all about. Haman wanted to kill us all, and then, God saved us, and we got through with it, and, there actually was on to the next one, and we got out of that one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and, even until modern day Hitler, and, we got out of that one too.
And we're still stuck right in the middle of it right now.
Right.
No one seems to like us.
So
I'm a nice guy. I don't know about you, but I'm a nice guy. They should like us.
Right. Like who do you,
we try to fit in so hard. I mean, who fits in more than the Jews?
Right. I read a book once where a guy he ran away during the Second World War. He fled from Poland, and it was all about his travels, and he ended up all over the place. He actually ended up in Korea. He ended up in Korea. When you're running, one thing leads to the next, you're just trying to get away. He ended up in Korea. When he was in Korea, a couple of guys came by on horseback, and they beat him up because he was Jewish. And he's thinking, like...
I don't even know in Korea.
In Korea? Like, what do they know of Jews? Like, we're talking about 1942 or something. Like, what do they know about Jews in Korea? But anyway, there's something about that. So what's going on?
I'm baffled.
Okay. Well, I'm going to offer you, there is a one-liner in the Talmud. The Talmud says that there was a mountain on which the Torah was given to the Jewish people, and the name of the mountain is Mount
Sinai.
Yes. Okay. Now, that mountain, Sinai, the word Sinai, why is it called Mount Sinai? Now, remember, we analyze everything. Like, why is something called some word or another? Why is the guy's name called Jones, or even if you tell me, like, the guy's name is Wright, and a Wright is someone that builds ships or something like that. Well, why are they called a Wright? We always analyze why all these names. What do names mean? So the mountain Sinai sounds very much like the Hebrew word Sin'ah. Sin'ah, Sinai, Sin'ah, and even though it's spelled, there's two letters in Hebrew. One is a samach and one is a sin, but they're very interchangeable because the sound is the same. And Sina means hatred. Sina means hatred. Sinai is Sinai. Sina is hatred. And the rabbis tell us that hatred, when God came down, Moses came down with the Torah, Mount Sinai, to give the Torah, he brought hatred down also.
Wow.
What does that mean? that at that moment, there were people in the world that hated the Jews because the Jews got the Torah. Now,
Right.
we had to actually have to take that back even a step further. It is very interesting. Take any group of people in any country, certainly by country. Frenchmen. Now, are all Frenchmen related? Not necessarily.
No.
You know, Frenchmen, they come from here. You could trace them back to various different
Conquered here, they
tribes,
conquered there,
the
they-
Gauls and
right.
different stuff. There's Normans, there's Gauls, there's Saxons, there's, different peoples.
Yep.
And even if you want to take it further, even all the Saxons related, and even if they are related, do they really feel like, if one of them were to die, or if you tell a Saxon who's living in America that another Saxon who's living in Saxony is ill, is there something going on? They say, whoa, I have to pray for him, I have to do something, I have to save
they
him.
wouldn't care.
No. And if a Frenchman is in trouble in one part of the world and there's a Frenchman in the other part of the world, they may feel like a sense like, I hate to see my country like maligned, but they don't really feel like a sense of necessarily kinship.
Right.
Unless they're related or something like that. And this is true of all different groups of people. It's true of religions. A Catholic might relate to a Catholic around the world because he says, I feel sorry for that person, or I feel good about that person for whatever is happening to them, because...
Sorry, I missed that. What did you say?
Yeah.
Couldn't hear you there.
Wow. Lost myself here. So... And with that, we have really explained the meaning of everything. So let's move on to the next topic. That's pretty amazing, wasn't it?
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, if they have two Catholics in the world, now I'm sure they relate to each other because he believes what I believe, but they really feel that they are one. Do they really have like one? Are their souls attached? They share a common belief. All Christians share a certain common belief, but of course they have all kinds of differences amongst them, even amongst Catholics. Do they necessarily feel that there's a oneness? I might feel like he's on my team. All Falcons fans, all Bama fans, right? So yes, you are united by something that you share in common, but do you really feel that this person is me? It's part of my flesh and blood, my kin.
No.
Right. So everyone's always talking about the Jews. What are the Jews? This is a big problem. What are the Jews? Is it a religion? Is it a nationality? So you say, well, if it's a family, how can you convert to it? But on the other hand, if it's just a religion, then how is it that you're born into it? You should have to,
decide,
you have to decide to be part of it. So which is it? So it turns out that it is a family, it is a group of people, and that group of people is not just a family. The group of people is actually one. One.
Right.
It's an amazing idea. That group of people is one. Gets us back to Sinai. What happened at Mount Sinai? So it says that when they came down to Mount Sinai, God saw the Jewish people, they camped at that mountain, and it uses the word they, but in the singular. And the Talmud tells us they were like one person. With one heart, they were all one person. And every Jew, says another teaching of the rabbis, every Jew that will ever live was at Mount Sinai.
Right, I've heard that.
So all the Jews are together. They are one organic whole. And this is really what has always bothered the world. What's always bothered the world is, who are these people? Like, the truth is, you can never really feel comfortable with them because they might be living in France or in the United States or in Italy, but are they really Italians, French, Americans, or are they really Jews?
I mean, honestly, I think our president just asked that question last year. He was concerned that maybe where their loyalty is.
That's right. That's right. And that's a classic line. That has been the line. Now, only recently they've been concerned where the loyalty was. For centuries and centuries and centuries, they never presumed that there was any loyalty.
Right.
Because there was, no one, because there wasn't that idea of nationalities and things like that. So they never thought there was any loyalty. But in more recent times, when we emancipated and divided up into countries with flags and geographical borders, this issue of loyalty became a big deal. And everyone's wondering, like, how do the Jews fit into this? They just don't seem to fit in.
Right.
That is because if a Jew is in one end of the world and a Jew is in the other end of the world, they are united. There is a oneness. And that is something that the rest of the world doesn't like, because other peoples don't really have that. It's not really the same for other peoples. There is not that oneness. Even when you scatter them, there is a oneness. And Jews keep track of what's going on with Jews around the world. And Jews feel for Jews around the world. And when people don't like Jews, they don't like the Jew here, or they don't like the Jew there. When they love the Jew, they love the Jew here, and they love the Jew there. This is a special thing. And where they have their commonality is that they all were brought together and they received the Torah. When that happened, there were people in the world that said, I just don't like that. I don't like that they're special, they're different. I don't like that.
Well, could some of it also be based on the Torah itself? I mean, here we have this group of people, this one group of people that they're given the rules, and all of a sudden they become the conscious of the world, and, well, wait a minute, they're looking at me like, hey, well, I'm better than you, you're doing wrong, and so let's, in every place and every possibility we can, let's blame the Jews because, look, they're as bad as us.
So Haman said, when he went to Achashverosh for permission to destroy the Jews,
right.
Haman said, there is this one nation. They are spread out and scattered all over the place, but they're different. Their laws, their norms are different than anyone else, and they don't do the king's norms. They do their own thing.
Right.
And everywhere you're going to find in the whole world, people might not like this group or that group, but after a while, if the group comes and they settle down and they, I just heard a guy, he comes from somewhere in Africa, I didn't hear where. He's talking about the fact that he lives in Atlanta, and he wants to be a good American. He's really happy that this country took him in, where he was coming from, circumstances were bad. He says he's got a daughter, he wants to raise his daughter to be a good American and to give back to society because the society's been really good to him.
Right.
I would venture to say that within one generation, his daughter will no longer be wherever it was he was coming from.
Absolutely.
She'll be a good citizen of her local country. She might trace her roots back to somewhere, but she won't have an affinity with that country, wherever it was, or that place, that land, wherever it was. And she and her father, they all want to be good, loyal citizens of Atlanta, and as they should be. It's wonderful.
Right.
The problem is that wherever the Jews are always yearning to go back to where they came from. This guy is not yearning. This guy doesn't say, I came to Atlanta to try to make it here, but ultimately I want to go back there.
Right. No, you don't see that.
He's not talking about that. He says, he didn't want to raise his daughter to know about that. He wants to raise his daughter to be good citizen of this country because this country's been good to him. I get it. Makes perfect sense. There's the only things about the Jews got this thing about returning to this land. And then you know what happened? After 2,000 years out of this land, a whole boatload of them, lots of boatloads of them, returned to the land. Like, freak me out.
Right.
Never heard of what's going on.
Now
they're living in this land. They're living in this crazy, it's just unbelievable. It's unheard of. And that makes the Jews keep being the other, the different, unusual, no parallel. And what happens is when you have a group of people like that, some people just simply do not like it.
But you see, but a good portion of the Jews try so hard to fit into saying, no, we are Americans, we are Atlantans, I root for the Falcons, I do it. They try so hard to do it, and as hard as they try, it still doesn't happen. You don't get any, because we're still the outsiders.
And that is really the story of Purim. The lesson to Purim is going to be, even when you try
Right.
to assimilate. And many Jews did, and they tried to be good citizens of the realm and all that stuff.
Right.
And many Jews even said, so we don't want to go back to Israel, because there was at the time, there was a fledgling community
Right.
trying
Right.
to build up Israel at the time of this whole Persian story. Yet, Jews said, no, we want to be good Persian citizens. And guess what? It's not going to happen. And you know what's not going to happen? You know why it won't happen? Because of anti-Semitism.
Yeah, they're not gonna let it
That's
happen.
that one thing that keeps stopping the Jews.
So you think that's built into the system, is what you're saying here?
So therefore, right. That is.
Now I'm getting it.
That's the fifth rail. That's the one that
Right.
you touch it and zzz,
Right.
You got to stay on the tracks. You try to get off the tracks, you touch the rail, you're going to get zapped.
Right.
And that's the deal. You want to stay on the Jewish track, you can stay on the Jewish track, but you want to try to get off?
By the way, now you know why Jews aren't engineers. It was a third rail, but that's
Third rail, there you go,
Jews
right.
definitely are not engineers.
You should see my railroad. It's got like so many tracks, it's unbelievable.
This is lots of rails.
5, 7,
Yeah, a lot of rails.
Yeah.
So bottom line is, it's built in. There's nothing we can do, is what you're saying.
That is the story.
So all of my friends that are doing everything they can to look at me, I'm dressing like them, I'm acting like them, I'm everything, not going to do any good?
As a matter of fact, no. You know what? It makes it worse.
Oh, does it make it worse?
It makes it worse because if the Jews want to act like Jews and dress differently, like with like bow ties and crazy hats and all that stuff, if the Jews want to be different, meaning want to play their role, then everyone's got it. As long as you act like Jews, we got it. If you want to try to pretend you're not Jews, the world doesn't like it.
They don't like that
And
at all.
they will say, one way or another, they will make you come back to your destiny. So you could get off the train and disappear. Just get off, walk out of the station, walk out into the world there, and try to disappear. But the Jewish people, any individual can disappear. The Jewish people are not going to disappear, and that is going to be our destiny. If we try as a people to disappear, the world will remind us, no, you're supposed to be Jews. And we get reminded harshly sometimes.
I mean, even Esther, no one knew she was a Jew at the time. And
That's right.
Bam.
That's
Whoops.
right.
Haman made that mistake. But then, so pretty much you can run, but you can't hide.
That's absolutely right. And that is, so you say, why all this anti-Semitism? It reminds us that we are Jews. And that's why people, who try to struggle with us say, well, it's the Palestinian issue. Well, it's this issue. Well, it's because we act like this and we act like that. So really, it's because we don't act like Jews.
Well, I told you the real story of what it was. I told you when my parents, we moved in Virginia, we moved into a nice neighborhood and had a beautiful country club in the neighborhood. Now, there were no Jews in the country club at the time, so we had to go like 30 miles down the road to a nice swimming pool. Now, we put our name up. Our name was put up at the country club, and we were blackballed, but it was for a real reason. My parents had a party once, and I guess it was loud. So the Jewish families that blackballed us said that the Jews are very loud people, and we got blackballed. So I can understand it. So it wasn't because of it's not necessarily because of this or that or whatever. We're loud.
Well,
there's always a reason. Palestinians weren't even an issue back then.
Right, you wouldn't want to belong to any country club that would have you as a member anyway. So
Right, but I got to tell you, at the end, what happened is the country club started to go bankrupt. They let in the Jews. Everything went back up again. Everybody was happy.
Right.
They needed us at the end, so we came back in. But I get it. So it wasn't necessarily the Palestinians. It was we were loud. It could have been any reason.
Right.
They don't
So
like us.
where did it come down into the world? The hatred came down into the world, which means when God took the Jewish people and He made them a separate and unique people, and He gave them a Torah, He said, "Fine, you can have the Torah." Now there's going to be people that are out there, and what is their purpose out there? That if you step out of line, they'll give you a little bite, a little bark, and they'll put you back in your place.
That's a shame.
Right. But that's the story of Purim, and that's what we're celebrating. It worked. We succeeded because you see that Esther said, "Go gather the Jews," and there was, as a matter of fact, at the end of the story,
Right.
it says many of the common folk in the country were converting.
Right.
Everyone, by the end of the Purim story, everyone wanted to be Jewish. Oh, being Jewish was just the coolest thing in the whole wide world. Everyone wanted to be Jewish. Before that, they were laying real low. Nobody wanted to be Jewish. Then, in the end, that's ultimately what we get out of the Purim story, and ultimately that's who we are. And the people who are telling over the Purim story are the Jews who are still around. Some other people maybe have gotten off along the way, but the Jews are still around. We're going to tell that Purim story. As a matter of fact, we believe that we're going to tell this Purim story forever, because that story is one of them that's going to be everlasting.
And I guess that really is the story of the Jews. And the Purim story, I mean, even more so than Passover, even more so than Hanukkah, this is the story of the Jews.
Right. The Passover story, that's the beginning. But, the whole travail and the trip through this exile and the return, that's what the Purim story is really all about. So Passover story is the beginning of the story, Purim story is the end of the story, and that's why we'll keep telling it over. And isn't it interesting that if you look at the Jewish calendar, the Passover, the month of Nisan, the next month, is the beginning of the calendar.
Right.
And the month that we're in right now, the month of Adar, and Purim is the last holiday, the last month of the calendar, and last holiday in the calendar. So we're finishing the cycle here, and we're going to start it all over again next month.
Interesting. So it's interesting. So, I guess. So the bottom line is, nothing we can do about it. Nothing listen, we're going to be, if the Palestinian, whatever those people are, that was solved tomorrow, it's going to be a totally different issue. It's not getting any better. So even if there was, say, a politician who came around and wants to remain neutral because he's a deal maker and he's going to solve the issue with the Jews, I'm not mentioning anybody in particular, it ain't going to happen. There is no solving this issue because it's in the plan. This is the way it's supposed to work. We're not going to be liked no matter what.
The way we can solve the issue, and there will not be any more issue, is for the Jews just to decide that they need to be just Jewish.
Right.
Fess up to it, accept it, live it, and then everything will be okay.
Wow. It's a tall order.
Yeah, maybe. But you get to wear like wacky ties on Purim and put on funny hats and jackets and all. Yeah, it's fun.
It's exciting.
It's fun. Who wouldn't want to be Jewish?
That's a good point. All right, so the point of today is be Jewish.
That's right.
You're a Jew,
What
but
a
a Jew.
surprise.
That's it. All right, good story and a happy Purim. Nice look, by the way. I really like it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next week, see you back.